Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the West Lindsey series. This is one of the 9 districts of Lincolnshire and one of the county's most rural. It has 128 civil parishes. Let's see which one this episode's all about. Welcome back to West Lindsey once again. Now, Atterby last week was really small. This one is just about the same size. So I reckon another half an hour walk around this place. And this one's covered a lot by trees, so there's plenty of shade. It's a good thing because it's about 27-28 degrees at the moment. It's quite warm. Now this one also includes a tiny hamlet called Atterby, which I drove through on the way down to the main village. Here we go, look, here's Atterby Lane. It's at this northern part of the village up towards it there. And I decided not to include it because it didn't really seem all that much, to be fair, just a clump of houses. If I can find a picture of it, it'll go in today's picture bit. Otherwise, this is a video all about the parish of Bishop Norton. The West Lindsey series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Bishop Norton, which includes the hamlet of Atterby, sits approximately 8 miles northwest of Market Rasen, close to the A15 in West Lindsey. Until 1974, when West Lindsey District Council was formed, Bishop Norton was part of the old Caistor Rural District. A pretty little place, Bishop Norton is oozing with history. Bishop Norton's name derives from the fact that it was the most northerly of the 12 manors belonging to the Bishop of Lincoln, based upon his chief manor at Stow. Bishop Norton appears variously in records as Nortune, Nortun, Bishop's Norton, and Norton Episcopi. Its standout feature is its church. As well as that, there's a village hall, a small playground, and a playing field. Those are the only real amenities here, although Google Maps does have an SAS Post Office marked at the end of Well Street. Farming is as important here now as it has ever been. It's got some narrow lanes too, some of which I imagine to be quite a challenge for large farm vehicles. It's not a complicated place to tell you about, but it did take a fair bit of research to make sure everything was right. It's another lovely corner of Lincolnshire. Take a wander with me and let's see what Bishop Norton has to offer. Our route around Bishop Norton is a short one, as you might expect. We begin at the vicarage, and how's this for a piece of bad luck? All the way around this village I saw zero traffic, not one car, except here at the tightest, blindest bend the place has. To give you an idea of what I mean, here you go. This is that very same spot viewed from the churchyard. It's not exactly a motorway, is it? St Peter's Church is a relatively modern construction compared to many others locally. This dates from around 1737. Bishop Norton is known to have had an earlier church, but it's unclear whether it stood on the site of the current one. Saxon finds from the 9th and 10th century have been found here and in other places immediately adjacent to the church grounds. These include a 9th century shard from a maxi strainer discovered in the garden of 3 Archer Street in 2004. So walking through the lit gate here, we've got a stone in the wall. This is a war memorial by the looks of it for World War I. The lit gate also has a World War II tablet directly opposite the one you've just seen. Exiting the church, you're faced with the old school. A national school, this was built by subscription in 1872. It could hold 100 children. The old school is one of the listed buildings in the parish. The others include St Peter's Church and Atterby Mill, a former water mill which stands on Atterby Beck. Off we go down Archer Street next, towards Archer House. We come across a large farm which Archer House overlooks. A track behind the house leads to Atterby Mill. In the other direction, a second track runs around the back of some of the houses on Grange Lane. This doesn't really go anywhere except for out into the countryside if you follow it to the right. Here's where there's an error to tell you about on the map. So the map doesn't show that as a dead end. It shows that you can get through off that track, which you obviously can't because you've just seen it's gated. However, not far away there is this footpath. Now this isn't marked on the map, so I don't know where this goes. Hopefully it comes out where I was intending to come out a moment ago. We'll soon see. It turns out it did. It brings you to Bishop Norton's Village Hall, which is what I was aiming for anyway. Located on Grange Lane, this is the village community centre, which can be hired for private functions. Opposite the village hall is a small playground and a football pitch. It's good to see that even the smallest villages still have facilities for all. The next section of the route is very much a residential affair. This then is a good time to talk about Crossholme, a now extinct hamlet between Bishop Norton and Glentham, which only exists now as a farm with the same name. Crossholme was one of 3 manors in Bishop Norton. Historical records show Crossholme was the youngest of the 3. As a village, it existed well into the 20th century, up to and including 1924. By 1964, the site of the village had been levelled by ploughing. There's something about the sound of a flag fluttering on the breeze that I like. I don't know what it is. It's even better when it's the Lincolnshire flag. No bias at all. I'll also use this residential area to mention Bishop Norton's Cold War rock post, which you can find to the southwest of the village in a field off Norton Lane. Here's a picture of it. It's been here since 1959 and it closed in 1968. All its surface features remain intact, but the low mound on which the post stood has been removed. This has left its ventilation shaft on top of a concrete pillar and its access shaft on 8 courses of bricks. Now we've turned a corner off Well Street and onto Eastfields. Still a residential area, but this is a little more modern. You've got to agree though, wherever we've been so far here, this has been typical West Lindsey. Along here we find the old smithy, because every village had one of these at one time. You've heard me say that before, I'm sure. It's now a handsome looking house. On the corner of Green Hill Close and Green Hill Drive, we have a little green, surprisingly, and there's a standalone postbox there as well. Some nice trees, more trees. Spin it around. Thorpe House on the corner. It's a lovely place, this, isn't it? All ends up. The last section of the walk sees us finish off Eastfields before coming to the centre of the village, where there's a small green, the parish notice board, and an old chapel or two. This is Bishop Norton's primitive Methodist chapel. It's the second building, dating from 1875. The original chapel was built in 1833. This served the village until 1993, and in 2009 it underwent some remedial work. This corner is the location of the parish notice board. That's another one down in West Lindsey. We're down to 56. The parish council here, by the way, is termed Bishop Norton and Atterby. And from here, it's an amble back down Main Street. These signs don't mess about. We already know it's unsuitable for heavy goods vehicles. I'd love to know if it's even possible to get a lorry around that bend at the beginning. Okay, almost back at the car, and we have one more thing to pass, and that is the Methodist Free Church, 1865. Here we go. So I've just walked from this corner here where the parish notice board is, and my car is there at the corner of Pingle Lane. And that just goes to show you how small Bishop Norton is, because look, here's the church. It's all clustered together in one sort of little area, isn't it? Easy to walk around and delightful in every sense of the word. Now this one shouldn't in theory have a picture bit because it's too small. However, there is one place we haven't been here that I really do need to mention, and that is Norton Place. So here comes today's picture bit with a bit of commentary about what it is. The most notable house in Bishop Norton is Norton Place, which stands off the A15. It's up a private road, so this is the best I can do with it here. It's Grade 1 listed, and it was designed by York architect John Carr. Norton Place is set on the edge of plantations in former parkland which was laid out in the 1770s. The house was built for the MP John Harrison in 1776. There were some alterations to the house in the 1830s for Sir Montague Cholmondeley, who was the grandson of John Harrison. These days, the Norton estate is run and lived in by a former City of London solicitor, whose family have lived on the estate for 3 generations. The estate is used for game shooting over the 1,500 acres it covers. The season begins early in September and continues until the end of January. Oh, and I promised you Atterby, so here it is. In the 19th century, this had as many as 134 inhabitants. Between 1866 and 1936, Atterby was a civil parish in its own right. In the early 20th century, the Everett family had established a bus service here, which was initially horse-drawn. Everett's buses operated around the local area for many years, until quite recently. And this will seem familiar to you, because we're back where we started, on the corner of Pingle Lane. And I want to mention this street sign if I can, because once again it's one of these types of road sign. We don't see many of these. There was one of these, if you remember, in Walesby, in Newark and Sherwood, and there was also one in Caistor which I had to put a picture of in because I had to cut that shot, if you remember, because I wasn't feeling very well at the time. There's one here in Bishop Norton. So there you go. That, my friends, is Bishop Norton. And yeah, time for me to move on to my next one. Hope you've enjoyed this. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.